this video, we will set up the Tezos command line interface. We will use the Gitpod environment in the browser, where we will get to use the Tezos Octave suite, a setup tool to interact with Tezos. And we will create an account and use a faucet to get some Tez on this test account on the test network. So during this training, we will be using Gitpod to edit, compile, and test smart contracts without having to install anything on your local computer. Gitpod works in the browser and provides a browser-based development environment that is pre-configured with tools that will include the VS Code editor, along with Tezos-specific plugins. It will provide a bash terminal that gives you access to the already installed Tezos Octave command line interface and other language compilers. It also offers a number of web-based visualization. All the data is stored as a GitHub or GitLab repository, and it uses Docker and Gitpod config files. To set up Gitpod, you first need to log in at gitpod.io/login. And for that, you will be using either your GitHub or your GitLab credentials. Once you're logged in, you need to go to Settings, then Preferences, so that you can make sure you select the VS Code in the browser IDE. Note that it is possible to synchronize Gitpod with a local VS Code editor, but we really don't recommend using that for the training. It makes it harder for us to help you, while the browser-based VS Code has everything already configured, including working with custom extensions. For this training, we have prepared a Gitpod environment that you can find at this address. When you connect to this address, if your Gitpod account was created with a GitHub credential, you have to authorize Gitpod to access repositories that are hosted on GitLab. Sometimes you can have issues that require you to try a couple times, and maybe with a different browser, it usually ends up working. And vice versa, if you later want to access to a repository hosted on GitHub, but you used GitLab, you also have to authorize github.com. So using your Gitpod account, please use this URL to open your workspace in your browser. This is what the Gitpod environment will look like. You have the code editor here, you have Explorer here where you can go through different files, and you have the bash terminal in the bottom section. Once you have Gitpod running, the next step is to set up the Tezos client. We need to indicate which test network node the client should connect to. So the Tezos protocol continually evolves, as we explained earlier. And there's new features and improvements coming all the time with new versions of the protocol, but there's always only one true official network called the mainnet. But for testing, there's a number of test networks that you can use, and the one that we will be using is called GhostNet. To connect to GhostNet, you have to connect to one of the nodes that support GhostNet. We will provide you the address of that node in the cheat sheet. If you want to find a list of the different nodes available for mainnet or different test networks, you can go to this address. So let's see how we set up the Tezos client. We need to run this command line to tell the Tezos client to connect to this endpoint. So this is the address of a node, and then to update the configuration for this endpoint. So you input this line in your Gitpod command line, and you should have the following output if everything goes well. If you don't want to get this warning every time you run a command, you can run this command. Let's give it a try. When you try to paste text, to paste this command or to paste the address of a node, your browser may request your authorization to paste content in there. So make sure you accept this authorization, otherwise you won't be able to paste content and you will have to type everything or just go in your browser settings to change the setting and allow pasting in this window. Okay, so let's run this command, connect to the endpoint, and we see that we have exactly that result. And then we can paste this command to disable this warning for future commands. The next step is to create an account. For this, we run the command Tezos client gen keys alias, and this is the alias of the account. You can use your own name. You will have to use it from then on. Once you have created your account, you can obtain the address of your account by running this command Tezos client show address alias, and this will show something like this, where you can see the hash here, which is the address that you want to keep. It starts with TZ1, so you want to then copy this address and keep it safe somewhere, as we will be using it, although most of the time you will be able to use the alias alias. At this point, your account doesn't have any Tez. It will have a balance of 0 Tez. So the next step is to get some free Tez. For that, we can use a faucet that is located at this address. Let's see how it works. First, let's create an account. So here I can change it, for example, to Bob. Then I can request the address for Bob. And I can see the address here. I copy it. Then I go to the URL to go to the Tezos GhostNet faucet, where here on the right side I can just paste my address and request some Tez. Okay, let's request 6001 Tez. I need to verify that I am human. And I got my Tez. I can then check my balance. And I can see that I received precisely 6001 Tez. Sometimes it can take a couple of minutes before you get your Tez. So at any time, if you want to check your balance, you need to type Tezos client get balance for and the alias of your account. Now that you have created your account, you can also check the activity of this account in a block explorer. So this is a website that is dedicated to providing all kinds of information about Tezos, looking at different accounts and their history, their transactions, looking at contracts, etc. One block explorer you can use is tzkt.io. When you go to this website, you need to make sure you select the right network. So not the mainnet, but here we will use GhostNet. So you can find it in the drop-down list. Then in the search bar, you can search for the address of your account or contract. So here we are on tzkt, currently on mainnet. So we switch to GhostNet. You can see that the color changed. We can then paste the address of our account. And we can see that it was just created 2 minutes ago and that we indeed received 6001 Tez. We can check the different transactions. We can see that we had a transaction of adding to 6001 Tez just a couple of minutes ago. You can also create an alias for another account, either the address of some other users or the address of a contract. For that, you use this command, Tezos client remember contract, the name you want to give to that contract, then the address of the contract. In some cases, you may want to create environment variables for each address. So Gitpod closes after 30 minutes of inactivity. So if you have any saved files, they will be kept probably at least a few days, but the environment variables won't stay. So if you want to avoid having to reconfigure everything each time you reopen your workspace, you can create a config.sh file that you can open in the VS Code editor, typing code config.sh. And then you can add whichever commands you want to run every time you have to reconnect on Gitpod. So here we have this command line that we use to disable the warnings. And then we just set up the endpoint so that we can be connected to GhostNet every time we log in again. So whenever you reopen your workspace, you can run this script by typing source config.sh, so or whichever name you use to save this. To make sure you find the right workspace, if you didn't keep the tab where it was open, you should just go to gitpod.io and it will show you the list of recent workspace that you have used. So don't reuse the link that we provided you initially, otherwise it will just create a new workspace and you will have lost everything. So just go to gitpod.io and then find your existing workspace. Now it's your turn. Please make sure you select VS Code as your IDE in your Gitpod settings. Open a new Gitpod workspace, select a node on a test network, GhostNet, then point the Tezos Octave client to this node, then configure an account and send some tests to it with a faucet. Finally, check your account on tzkt.io and create the script to save your configuration.